Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the McLeod County Board of Commissioners meeting today on November 5th. We begin by standing with our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, welcome. We'll begin our board meeting today with Hannah with employee recognition.
Good morning. This is always a fun way to start our meetings off. I'm really excited to get to welcome today Steve Eggert, who has been a part of the McLeod County Sheriff's Posse for over 10 and a half years. Steve, if I could have you come join me at the front here. I'm really excited. This morning I got to talk with our captain of the Posse. For those of us that aren't aware, the Posse are a group of folks who their mission, goal, the reason that they're hired is to promote good fellowship and community service and support the efforts of the McLeod County Sheriff's Office throughout the county in events, things like the McLeod County Fair, Winstead, weddings, like different kinds of events out at our parks and those kinds of places to have extra presence and again to promote community. When I talked to our Posse captain, Brad Platts, he shared that Steve was an extremely dependable member of the McLeod County Posse. We really appreciated his involvement. Brad specifically mentioned that Steve was someone who took a lot of the shifts that were not always easily coverable, so overnights, weekends, those kinds of things. You were extremely flexible, stepped in. But most importantly, that you were always a great team player, you were dependable, social, and you really got along. Another just interesting thing about Steve is that Steve got involved with the Posse because of his son-in-law Brian, who's also a Posse member with us, and his wife Amber is one of our eligibility workers here at the county. So it's really cool when we see those family connections. So with that, I would love it if we could give a round of applause and great gratitude to Steve for his 10 and a half years of dedication and service with the McLeod County Posse. I'm going to have, unless there's any words from the board, I will have, we'll do a quick photo as a group behind the podium here.
Yep. Yeah, Steve, we definitely want to thank you for all those years of service and keeping our citizens safe. And so yes, we definitely enjoy the opportunity to have a photo with you up here. So. Okay, good.
Before we move on, we're also going to do a quick recognition. If I could have Joe, would you mind joining me up here at the front? We're really excited. Today we are welcoming our new facilities manager to McLeod County. This is Joe Morgan. Joe is starting today on November 5th. We're excited to have him be a part of the board meeting today. You'll see him in the audience, and he's looking forward to getting to know you and the board and obviously serving us in the role of facilities manager. Joe, we were literally putting you on the spot. You didn't know this was going to happen. But do you have any words or anything you'd like to share a little bit about your background and what excites you about this role today?
Yeah, so I come to you with 24 years with Leasor Incorporated, which is a aluminum foundry, but it's 17 years in the facilities and maintenance side. So my wife and I live in Arlington, so real close to here, and have been there for 17 years, I think it's been. Yeah, I'm excited, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, great. Well, Joe, we're excited to have you as well. You can go ahead and have a seat, and if you're obviously interested in getting to talk more with Joe, he'll be here.
Welcome, Joe.
Welcome.
Okay, moving on to our agenda this morning. Consideration of agenda items. Do we have any additions or corrections to today's agenda?
No changes, Mr. Chair.
Move agenda, Mr. Chair.
Okay, is there a second? We have a motion by Schmal, second by Luthens to approve today's agenda items. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our consent agenda.
No changes.
Okay, any action items, anyone? We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion by Nagel and a second by Luthens to approve our consent agenda for this morning. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving along to environmental services. Mark Teleski, Director.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning. So I have one item for your consideration this morning, and that is to consider approval sending a letter to Spruce Ridge Resource Management Facility verifying the municipal solid waste projected tonnage for the years 2025 through 2030. Spruce Ridge Resource Management Facility is requesting municipal solid waste estimated tonnage from McLeod County for the years 2025-2030. The solid waste management plan is being updated with the final plan currently under review by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, MPCA. The estimated tonnage would under normal circumstances be verified via the approved solid waste plan. Since the plan is under review, the MPCA has requested a letter from McLeod County Board of Commissioners sent to Spruce Ridge Management Facility verifying projected tonnage. Blair Nelson with Spruce Ridge is with us today, so it's just an estimate. They are in the process of an application for certificate of need, and it has to do with the vertical height expansion on the existing footprint. Blair's here if you do have questions for him. Those estimates are estimates that we will reflect into our plan. It's just until the plan has been reviewed by MPCA staff and blessed, and then we would put out for open comment. We can't use that quite yet.
Okay. All right, if you have any questions for Mark at all?
So we're just approving the ability for you to send the letter, correct?
That is correct.
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Nagel. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Nagel and a second by Luthens to consider sending a letter to Spruce Ridge verifying the municipal solid waste projected tonnage. Is there any discussion? Definitely like to see Blair is here in attendance, and that is actually a very important partnership that we have with Waste Management and landfill here in McLeod County. So thank you for their cooperation on everything that we do here. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Veteran Services, Cassandra.
Good morning.
Morning.
Considering approving out-of-state travel for Veteran Service Officer Brianna Lauer on the tentative dates of December 6th through the 9th, 2024, to assist the Minnesota Association of County Veteran Service Officers, MACVSO, with a demobilization event for approximately 579 Minnesota National Guard soldiers who are demobilizing through North Fort Cavajos, Gatesville, Texas. Lauer is a member of the MACVSO reintegration team that helps welcome soldiers back to Minnesota and educates them on how and why they should reach out to their local county veteran service officer offices. There is no cost to McLeod County for the travel, as the state of Minnesota will pay for the airfare and lodging, and MACVSO will pay for ground transportation and meals.
All right.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion by Kruger and a second by Nagel to consider out-of-state travel for Veteran Service Officer Brianna Lauer. Is there any discussion? I guess you'll notice how fast the motion was read off, and you'll just acknowledge how very sincere and deep the dedication is for the McLeod County Board to everything that our Veteran Service Office does. So thank you for bringing this forward today. Good luck to Brianna. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up will be Public Works. Andrew Engel.
Good morning.
Morning.
Asking the board to consider approving the estimate from Design Electric Incorporated for electrical upgrades at the Gutenberg Park Campground at a cost of $77,770 plus an alternate at a cost of $5,500 for a total cost of $83,270 with American Rescue Plan Act funds. Upgrading the electrical at the RV sites is a priority in the Parks Plan and was discussed at the board workshop on March 19, 2024. The project will install 50, 30, 20 amp pedestals at each RV site that currently does not have one, and will also relocate pedestals to the back right of each site that does currently have that service. The alternate addition recommended by design would allow for more 200 amp power sources in the future and be a cleaner, more cost-effective installation overall. A second estimate was received from E2 Electrical Services in Hutchinson in the amount of $106,278.13.
Okay, any questions, anyone?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I'm a little confused on that 5,500. Is that, it's called an alternate?
Yeah, they recommended that just if we were to ever want to add 200 amp services in the future, we wouldn't if they had utilized the current cabinets that we had there. So they said if you do this, then you would have that future expansion. So.
And that's our intention?
Yeah, to at least have the ability
No,
to not be
I just,
locked
the
in.
verbiage,
Yep.
I just didn't know what alternate meant. It's kind of a no-brainer probably.
Yeah, as long as they're there doing the work already.
Okay. Any further questions?
Move to approve, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion. Is there a second? I can second that. We have a motion by Nagel, second by Wright to approve the estimate from Design Electric at a cost of $83,270. Funding coming from the Corona Relief Funds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Item B, please consider awarding county project CP 24000005, the gravel crushing and stockpile contract. We opened bids yesterday and received one bid from Reiner Contracting. We set this contract up with a base bid to crush 10,000 tons of milling stockpiled at Hats and mix that with 15,000 tons of gravel. For a total cost on that at $245,092.00. We also bid an alternate to have the City of Hutchinson's 5,500 ton pile of millings crushed and stockpiled on site for a price of $18,417.25. The alternate would be paid for by the City of Hutchinson. So I'm asking for the board to approve the contract with Reiner Contracting for a total of $263,509.25.
Okay, questions, anyone?
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Andrew, the quote for creating the stockpile, is this consistent with, let's say, I suppose it can't be consistent, but similar to what we did a few years ago at the Slats facility, and how did the prices compare with what we did a few years ago?
Yep. So it's a very similar setup to the contract. We tweaked the specification on the gravel slightly and added a plasticity index specification to make sure that we have good binder material in this material. Price-wise, we're about 25 to 50 cents a ton more than we were when that pile was crushed in 2021. So a little bit of inflation on there. As compared to virgin gravel, talking with some of the townships, they're paying roughly $8.50 a ton for virgin gravel plus trucking. So we're coming in right in the ballpark, actually pretty cheap comparatively.
Another question, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
And what's the planned usage for the stockpile when we get it built?
It will be used for re-graveling our gravel roads and shouldering our paved roads.
Move approval, Mr. Chair?
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Schmalz and a second by Luthens to consider awarding the County Project 24-0005 to Reiner Contracting for the gravel crushing and stockpile. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item C, please consider hiring Chad Bandis of Silver Lake, Minnesota for plowing CASA 103 in Biskie at a rate of $80 per hour, utilizing a pickup truck for the 2024-2025 snow and ice season with funds from the highway maintenance budget. This is a rate increase from $74 the last 2 years. Due to the narrow streets and tight turns, this contract saves our tandem snow plows about 40 minutes during a typical snow event. The time is much better utilized for us to hit our main line highways. Little background here, 2022-2023, we did this contract. For the 30-plus snow events we had, that was about $2,072. And then the 2023-2024 snow season, we had 8 events, and that was $647.
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Nagel and a second by Kruger to consider hiring Chad Bandis for plowing County State Aid Highway 103 in Biskie for $80 per hour. Any further discussion? Seeing none, will proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item D, please consider approving final acceptance and payment of $2,434.11 to Camco Incorporated of Dassel, Minnesota for County Project 2400001, the 2024 countywide pavement markings with funds from the highway construction budget. This project is completed satisfactory and final acceptance and payment is recommended.
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Schmalz and a second by Kruger to consider approving the final acceptance and payment of $2,434.11 to Camco. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
this is the restriping that we kind of
Correct.
how to, and I asked to have it pulled off the consent in here just because I wanted to know how everything worked out and were you satisfied with, how it ended up? Although it's not the mileage you wanted, was the work?
Yep, the work was very satisfactory. It was all completed in about 2 days, so they got on it, got it done really quick. So we had good weather for late season striping, and everything worked out well.
And are we hopefully expecting them or more companies to be competitive bidding as time goes on?
Yep.
Good. Will help. Any further comments or questions on the motion? Proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item E, consider approving the final acceptance and payment of $38,585.45 to Tyzac Concrete Incorporated of Lee Center, Minnesota for State Aid Project 043715006, the CASA 115 Concrete Pavement Project with funds from the Highway Construction Budget. This project is completed satisfactory and final acceptance and payment is recommended. This project actually came in about $12,000 under the awarded amount.
Okay. Questions, anyone? I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Wright, second by Nagel to consider approving the final acceptance and payment of $38,585.45 to Tyzac Concrete. Any further discussion? Seeing none, will proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item F, consider approving additional construction administration and engineering services from Stonebrook Engineering of Burnsville, Minnesota for State Project 043070023, County State Aid Highway 115 CASA 25 Roundabout Project in Hutchinson at an estimated cost of $30,000 with funds from the highway construction budget. Due to 4 weeks of significant adverse weather conditions in June and July, additional field work and administration tasks were necessary to complete the project. Administrative work included in the original scope of work to close out the project is still remaining. Remaining work includes finalizing the remaining change orders, completing partial and final pay vouchers, reviewing and signing off on punch list items as they're completed, verifying turf establishment, reviewing and finalizing labor compliance and disadvantaged business enterprise requirements, preparing and submitting record plan sets, and completing the final DCP documentation for state aid.
Move to approve.
Is there a second? Looking for a second. I can second that. We have a motion by Nagel and a second by Wright to consider approving additional construction administration to Stonebrook at an estimated cost of $30,000 for funds from the highway construction budget. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
that's why I hesitated. I'm never clear on why, wasn't none of this included in the initial bid?
It was all included in the additional bid. Due to the rain and the delays in the project, we still had field staff on site with lower productivity of work. The contractor, due to the rain, wasn't able to be as productive, so we still had to have staff out there from Stonebrook, so that ate up the budget for the final closeout process. We are also about $30,000, actually about $33,000 under budget on our material testing. So this will be a wash budget-wise.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'm
Go ahead.
still always unclear on, we do this frequently, and I see it in other bids, why some of this isn't covered in the initial bids, and then if there's an add-on, why it isn't brought to us before. I mean, we're paying people just to sit there on rain days?
Nope, they weren't there on rain days, but it's the day is where it's been done raining and the contractor's out there working, but they're not being as productive as they normally would. So we still need staff out there to watch. We still need staff out there to be checking grades, to be checking everything. It's just not as productive of work for the contractor, thus it takes more time for more staff time.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
I'm going to go along with it, or I'll vote for it this time because I actually trust you, Andrew, but these things, you've got to be at least vetted when they go on. I mean, the prices are high enough the way they are, and I understand what we have to pay, but it's pretty common to add 25, 50 grand, and if we're doing it, I'd like to see, you laid it out here pretty well, but I'd like to see more of an inventory of why it's not covered in the initial bids.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other discussion, questions? Seeing none, we'll then proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next up will be the Recorder's Office. Deborah Jensen.
Good morning.
Morning.
Consider adopting Resolution 24CB29, Resolution to amend Resolution to establish a fund for the modernization of records. This amendment to the Recorder Modernization Fund Resolution will extend the expenditure date to December 31st, 2029, and then revert to the general fund. The amended resolution will read, fees placed into this fund have ceased as of September 30th, 2005. Fees collected for this purpose and not expended by December 31st, 2029 shall then revert to the general fund. The Fund for Modernization of Records was created, I believe, in 1985 and has been held in that fund for modernization of the recorder processes.
Okay. All right, any questions for the recorder at all?
Mr. Chair, I will move Resolution 24CB-29.
Okay,
I'll second.
all right. Well, we have a motion by Schmalz and a second by Kruger to consider adopting Resolution 24CB29. Do we have any additional discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
I've worked with the Recorder's Office, and if anybody needs some help, I guess that you would. Modernization, is there plans? With technology today, I'm not picking on you, but it's somewhat stagnant in the Recorder's Office. It's stayed the same, or I'm not recognizing new things. So not only establishing this fund, is there some long-range plans to do some work?
Yes, there's been some new products coming out with our land record system that I'd like to take a look at and possibly take advantage of. And with passport services, they're moving towards digital photographs being uploaded when people are renewing their passports. And our present camera does not have that capability, so this would be something that we could use for that purpose.
Mr. Chair, and I would be in support of that as it goes along. I'm just a comment. Not to streamline it, but to make it faster and better. I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, will proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, information technology, Matt Troska.
Good morning. Item A, consider approving a waiver from the State of Minnesota IT Services for CrowdStrike Managed Detection and Response. The CrowdStrike MDR agreement was approved on July 16th, 2024. At that time, Minute did not include the waiver in the items that were needed to be approved.
Okay, looking for any questions, anyone?
I'll move to approve.
Okay. We have a motion by Kruger and a second by Nagel to consider approving the waiver from the State of Minnesota IT Services. Any further discussion? Seeing none, will proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Item B, consider approving the statement of work from the Minnesota Security Consortium for PCI DSS assessment and compliance review at a cost of $1,000 with funds from the information technology budget. This assessment will review the use of credit card payment systems used at McLeod County and identify any security issues or risks.
Okay. Questions, anyone?
Move request, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Schmalz and a second by Kruger to consider approving the statement of work from the Minnesota Security Consortium at a cost of $1,000.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I can't resist to ask, that's a moderate request. What does it actually do? I mean, how does this help us? I know it's necessary, but I don't understand what it.
So there's a 1,000-page document of requirements surrounding the use of credit cards and accepting forms of payment that we need to comply with. So what this will do is we'll go through that. It'll walk around, look at all the areas the county is using or accepting credit card payments. We'll talk to those various departments. We'll run through some checklists and find out what we're doing, what we're not doing, and what we need to change, if anything.
And at the end of that, you won't be afraid to make any changes if it's more secure or better.
No.
That's correct. All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, will proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item C.
Item C, consider approving a quote from Exigent Solutions for the renewal of Commvault Cloud at a cost of $19,320 with funds from the information technology budget. Commvault Cloud is used to back up and protect data that is stored in Microsoft Office 365.
Okay, questions, anyone?
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Kruger and a second by Nagel to consider approving a quote from Exigent Solutions for the renewal of the Commvault Cloud at a cost of $19,320. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Again, I do this trusting my department heads. I mean, you do a good job, and I'm in classes now trying to figure it all out, and I don't work with it every day, so I'm amazed you got dark hair yet. But at any rate, no, it's an ongoing battle, and you hear the horror stories, and knock on wood, but we've been doing pretty well as far as I know. So again, I'm saying that more for the benefit of the public. I mean, these things are an ongoing battle. I mean, all our data is all open, and I mean, it's. I don't talk about you as nice when I'm plunking on my computer, but it's a necessary evil. So thanks.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next item.
Item D, consider approving the quote to add additional licensing to our Microsoft Enterprise License Agreement for an additional cost of $84,838.84, bringing the total cost for the third year of the agreement to $256,034.64 with funds from the information technology budget. The added licensing increases our license count to account for employees that have been added over the last few years, changes to our M365 licenses from G3 to G5, and adds additional Windows Server licensing. Our current Microsoft Enterprise licensing agreement was approved on December 21, 2022. The additional licensing counts cover full and part-time seasonal and temporary employees that need access to email and Microsoft software, and moving from the G3 to G5 licensing adds features that allow us to be compliant with CGIS and FTI requirements.
Okay. All right, questions, anyone?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Nagel and a second by Kruger to consider approving the quote to add licensing to our Microsoft Enterprise License Agreement. Is there any further discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll then proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Matt, you bring stuff forward. I think we're just bouncing off of what Commissioner Kruger had said. That gets to be a little bit hard to follow, but we do know that there's an awful lot of data, an awful lot of security involved with all the county records, and thank you for being able to keep track of all that. So.
Yep, thank you.
All right, next item will be county administration. We will first review our commissioner calendars. Mr. Nagel?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Kruger. I don't appreciate the gray hair joke, but that's all right. I'm a little hamstrung this morning. My computer's down, so as far as meetings go, there were a few, but nothing too pressing or overly report-driven. Just so the board knows, and the numbers escaping me right now, but the county ditch north of Hutch that I've been struggling with, I'm going to ask for a ditch meeting with the landowners. With that, I was going to do that this morning, but obviously the auditor's office is quite busy with the election today. With that, thank you to those people and all the staff that helps with the election, and I hope everyone has the opportunity to vote today. So, thank you.
Okay, for my calendar over the last couple of weeks, not a lot of what I call formal meetings. Did attend a candidate forum at the city of Hutchinson. We have some ditch issues that are kind of waiting on the DNR to do their job first. Fairgrounds, slowly watching their building take shape, and there's a lot of people that are ready to rent it. But we just have to go through the motions. We'll have an update, more formal update. I believe it's next week. We have a Fairgrounds Commission meeting, but I guess there's contractors in there doing what they can. Probably for myself, one of the bigger events that I attended is I did spend 4 days at the National FFA Convention, which is something I'm very involved in. I've been there a couple years ago, and it is just absolutely incredible to go into. To go there, 70,000 people from across the United States were in one spot. So it's to be able to sit in some of those speaking sessions in the Lucas Oil Stadium with tens of thousands of young adults in their FFA jackets and ag leaders from all over the place. It was just absolutely incredible. Incredible to the point where I've actually invited the Glencoe Silver Lake FFA chapter to our next meeting to give us an overview of their experiences there, because they had a couple of teams that competed, one of which, and I hope I hear a real in-depth story on this, I believe they used Commissioner Kruger's nameplate as one of the props for during their contest. So I definitely want to hear a lot about that. But they will be coming here at our next board meeting with a time slot just to talk about what they've done throughout their year, and of course these teams that made it to the national level competition. That is absolutely impressive. So I think we need to recognize those youth that are able to do that. And I know I did ran into them there and talked to them, and they're pretty excited about being able to travel all that way and be able to be recognized for their national efforts on that. So that'll be at our next board meeting. So, and that's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, they used my nameplate, but I think the topic was water. That's why they used it. I know they used one of our local legislators as well. I did not hear the presentation yet. I somehow, I don't know if it's copied or videoed anywhere. I would like to see how they went through it, because it's interesting that they did that. And the name escapes me, but I know, speaking of the FFA, one of the gals from Glencoe came back with hardly no sleep and had to play in a tournament. So they're not only active in FFA, I believe it was, don't quote me, volleyball or exactly what it is, but they work, those kids work hard, and I'm proud of them. And Commissioner Nagel, you brought up that ditch. Anything I can do to help push that along I get a date set, because I'm getting calls on it as well. I mean, that's long been overdue. So as far as my calendar, on the 23rd, I had a Zoom interview with our auditor for Trailblazer. It's kind of an intense fiscal interview on everything. It all went well, but I was kind of surprised at the number of questions that were asked. And then on the 29th, I went to the Glencoe Planning Commission meeting on AI and the expansion of the BIC situation out here. And I mean, there was a number of people there. There could have been more, but there was a number of people there that we had some good questions and maybe some long-range solutions, I'm hoping. On the 30th, we had the HRA board meeting, and on the 31st, the agenda review. That pretty much took care of my 2 weeks.
Thank you, Commissioner Kruger. I had a busy couple of weeks since our last county board meeting. A workshop was held at the county board meeting on the 15th. After that workshop, I participated with administration on some interviews that took place for some potential candidates from McLeod County. On Thursday the 17th, we had an insurance Zoom meeting. It's a Zoom meeting pertaining to our what we call our insurance reopeners with our unions, and we did that by Zoom. And that evening, I drove to Wilmer for Pioneer Land Library Joint Powers Board meeting. It's a busy meeting. When we get to this time of the year, all of our Joint Powers Board meetings are packed full with agenda items, trying to, get things prepared for the upcoming year. The following week, on Wednesday, I attended the District 7 AMC meeting in Waseca. I gave the county report on the questions they were seeking. They were seeking questions about our preliminary levies from each county, looking at issues. Cannabis was a discussion point, and how many counties are ready to do an ordinance for cannabis. Spent a lot of time discussing that. And also AMC presented a proposal that will be looked at our winter conference in December to increase the dues that they ask McLeod County to pay, and that money would be spent toward staffing needs at the AMC level. On evening of the 24th, I participated in a candidate forum that was held in Silver Lake. The following week, Wednesday the 30th, agenda review with Kaisa Olson, our CHB administrator. It was in preparation for the Joint Powers Board meeting that we were intending to hold on the 31st. 31st, we were to hold a Joint Powers Board meeting for our CHB, but the snowstorm that came in that morning pretty much canceled that meeting for us. I actually got on the road and started out for Litchfield for that meeting, and it was absolutely too dangerous to be out on the roads that morning. So it was an easy decision to cancel the meeting. But knowing that, we had some important issues to take care of. So we, or I should say the administrator, Kaisa, set up an emergency CHB Joint Powers Board meeting on Friday. We did that because there were some timelines that need to be met, and she was bumping up against those timelines. We didn't ask people to get on the road for that emergency meeting. We checked with legal counsel. I should say we. Kaiser checked with legal counsel to make sure that we were following all state statutes, holding a joint powers board meeting at the emergency level to make some quick decisions. So we did that by Zoom on Friday the 1st. And I'm not done yet. Yesterday, Supporting Hands Nurse Family Partnership Joint Powers Board meeting attended in Olivia. Again, a long agenda, lots of year-end prep going on, looking at budgets, looking at COLAs, all kinds of things happening. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Lukens.
Thank you. I had a nice quiet 2 weeks, mostly laying in bed with my problems of health, so I didn't get much done.
Okay.
Thank
All right.
you.
Okay, thank you. Anything from the attorney's office?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One meeting I've had since the last board meeting that our office was happy to attend, myself and a couple of assistant county attorneys, was with our Glencoe Silver Lake School District. It was a meeting they had asked to be set up, and we had talked about with the district, our Health and Human Services, and then our office, and to address school attendance and truancy in particular. State law sets forth some standards regarding school attendance, such as mandatory, and when a child is truant after so many absences, there can be different actions initiated, whether it's with Health and Human Services, case management, or ultimately my office filing a truancy petition with the courts. So what we were discussing is the start of a truancy intervention program that involves contact with these families that are struggling with attendance much earlier in the process, before Health and Human Services has authority to step in, or before the courts would have authority. And what that would amount to is my office setting up individualized meetings with these families at the school with school officials to educate them on both what the law requires, what next steps will look like if attendance doesn't approve, and hopefully offering or identifying resources that can get these kids back into school. We know historically that truancy is one of the leading predictors of involvement in the criminal justice system. There are statistics that show high school dropouts are up to as much of 8 times more likely to be incarcerated as adults than someone with a high school diploma, let alone all of the other predictive factors as far as just success economically and elsewhere. So it would be a commitment for my office to take on a much bigger role, with the school districts in cooperation. But it's one that I'm excited about. So we're going to work through that, and we're hoping to start what would really amount to almost a pilot project with this school district this year, and hopefully have something countywide to roll out by the next school year. So something that's in progress, certainly not finalized, but we're happy to partner with our schools and looking forward to hopefully a more robust program in the future. So just wanted to note that.
Oh, good. Well, thank you for bringing that update forward. It sounds like a really good way to try and prevent things from getting any worse for your office. So thanks for that. Back to Administrator.
Thank you. Item A, we have the cannabis draft ordinance update. For the commissioners in front of you, you should see a McLeod County cannabis ordinance draft, which we've been discussing, I think, for a number of months now. And today we're going to go, Stefan Wiblemo will come up and go over the public hearing timeline. I'm just going to go over a couple of high points in here for you to make sure that you're recognizing. Also, this will go into our packet. This is not in the packet right now because if you were to make a change today, we didn't want it to be confusing for the public. So I'm just going to point out a couple of things. Anything that you see in red is either changed or added. Anything crossed out is taken out and replaced. This reflects pretty closely with the Olmsted County cannabis ordinance that they put in place. It also incorporates everything from the cannabis ordinance that you put into place, or the public use ordinance, excuse me, on the 21st day of November in last year, so about a year ago. This also was made using the Office of Cannabis Management template that we've looked at several times now. On page 6, It's important to note that Section 6 limits on cannabis businesses in the county is a decision that the board would need to make when this is voted on, which is not today. That's why there's two sections. It's either or sorry, one or the other. So either the first paragraph or the second paragraph. Of course, it can be edited, but you either put a limit on the number of businesses or you do not. Also, another notable change or addition is on page 4. Where the cannabis public use applies to is very expanded here. It was very general in the last one. So you can see underneath where it's crossed out, and then numbers 1 through 5 under G, that's the expansion. It also incorporated all of the statutes that are referenced. They're listed now. So, of course, it may be a little bit harder to upkeep, but with it being an ordinance, we've thought it would be important to make sure that they're included. And then the county attorney had some addition about how this is a phased approach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, if I could. What you'll see when you work through this draft, and if you compare it to any of the previous drafts that have been discussed at prior workshops or in work groups or at those community meetings, is this draft really would be phase 1 of these, what should be a 2-part process. What you won't find in this current draft is great detail about the planning, really the planning and zoning piece, as well as some fees and things. There's a number of restrictions that the statute allows for, but then a big piece of this is the interplay with our own local planning and zoning ordinance and the existing designations and classifications that are already out there. So if you look at this and you think to yourself, those things have been overlooked, they haven't. That would be part two of this process, and that's a similar process as what Olmsted County had covered. This one would really address, in large part, that piece about putting a cap or not putting a cap on retail businesses, and it will give those communities in our county, the cities, the townships, an indication of where we're heading, and hopefully what we ought to do is ask for, put a date on whether they'll notify us if they plan on delegating to us or jumping on board, or if they plan on doing their own thing. So I think this will move the process forward. It still gives us time to implement those, hyper-specific and technical details that would be in phase 2. And as far as timing, we're still set up just fine here for our public hearing, which will be coming, and then, still give time for publication and things before any of these businesses, can be up and running. So if you look and you see, hey, where's the distance setbacks from schools, where's that type of stuff? It's not in here, but it would presumably be in phase 2, assuming that the board is interested in setting forth some of those standards. So.
Thank you. I just want to add one more thing. So with the cities and townships adopting our ordinance or not, just keep in mind, and some have asked, that can change. So we can give them a deadline for the initial, but they could maybe decide to go with it and then change their mind later, or vice versa. And some of them have asked about that. I think that gave a comfort level to some of the councils and boards, knowing that, yeah, we could come in later and adopt it or change our mind. Of course, they'll have to go through their own public hearing process and whatever may be, but it's not set in stone that they can't change their mind down the road.
Okay. Commissioner Kruger.
Yeah, Brian, for some reason, I haven't heard much about it until lately. I know I'm getting some inquiries on, there's rumors around, running rampant, obviously, but do we control the number of businesses, or will we control the number in the county? Even if the cities do their own ordinance, can they have, does that, our numbers wouldn't supersede theirs, is that right?
So when it comes to the retail businesses and the cap that the statute allows for on the retail businesses, the county, if the county were to limit those businesses to the minimum number allowable, which in our county would be 3, because it's 1 per, or 4, I'm sorry, it's 1 per 12.5, so we'd have to allow for 4. If cities and townships within McLeod County delegated or adopted our ordinance in that respect, that would cover, I mean, it would limit within the city. However, if there's cities that opt to write their own ordinance on this, whether it's, Hutch, Glencoe, or anyone else, then licenses within their city subject to their ordinance would not count against the county's 4. So what it would do, I mean, when we had these community meetings and we'd have some representatives from our cities and towns, some of their feedback was they were hoping the county would limit it to the minimum number allowable, and if they would, they'd likely just sign on to that, and then they would be capped by that same number. And what the county could do is, if the county would limit it to that 4, and if there is a bigger, any city, just take Glencoe for instance, hypothetically, if they allowed for 4 or more within their own ordinance, those could count against the counties, where the county would not have any additional. So the county, under the umbrella, can count what's happening in the cities against their number if we set a cap, but it doesn't work the other way. We can't tell a city like Glencoe or Hutch that they can't have any. So we can use their number to count against ours, but if they choose to regulate on their own, they get to set how many they have, and we can't prohibit that.
Okay, just to be clear, I think I understand you. So if, using Glencoe for an example, because that's where I'm getting the inquiries from, if we set, you said it counts against, but does it count for? I mean, if even they're out of they set their own ordinance, are we covered by allowing enough, even if they have more than what we would have set for? As you know, you know where I'm coming from. I mean, we won't have any say per se on what they can do, or any ordinance or regulation. But does that count for a business?
Any license within the county would count toward the county's number.
Even if it's separate, Glencoe does their own. That's kind of where there's so many rumors flying right now, and the data is showing that everybody applying for these businesses are out of state or out of country, even by a big margin. Okay.
And that issue is kind of the language of Section 6 that we need to decide on.
Correct. I mean, that's purely a policy issue that we'll need to decide one way or the other, and the board will have discretion on what it does there. But the 2 options provided are the 2 sort of, more 2 logical options, and then it would just be a policy choice between which one.
I mean, this is gonna be a headache it's gonna take over water.
I agree. Yep, getting there.
Do you want to go over the timeline, Stefan?
Yeah.
Thank you.
If the board chooses that it wants to move forward with the public hearing on November 19th, the next meeting, what I'd do is I'd make sure we get the public notices printed in our official newspaper, McLeod County Chronicle. Those would be printed in their issues that are published on November 8th and 15th. And with that, it would meet our 10-day requirement of public notice.
How many hearings do we need? 1?
We need 1 for some reason. If it needed to be continued, I mean, it could, but one's all that's required by statute.
And then we'll need a hearing for the zoning piece of it too?
Yes, that I know at the last meeting that was what was determined, is that we'd have 2 separate hearings, just in case, 1 for the ordinance and 1 for the zoning ordinances.
And it's just important to note that the final ruling from the state is not done. So with the zoning, that's why we would hold off a bit, and we are not alone in that throughout the state.
Mr. Chair, the only other thing I would mention, although I don't want to lose any sense of urgency, because I think we should continue to work on this, but January 1 is the day we've been working backward from, because that's when moratoriums ended, and that's when the possibility of things popping up, you know, increases. But as things set right now, most of these businesses aren't authorized to begin until March of 2025. But there's a carve-out that the law provides for that some of these early applicants, you know, they could change rules and let them start earlier. So right now, you know, the sky's not falling. We have time to work through this. So we have some time, but I also want to note our timeline, that it could creep back up toward January 1st. Right now, it's a March timeline, but I recommend that we continue to work on this in earnest, which, you know, we have been. But.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
that's part of what I've been understanding is if that comes in, that moratorium or whatever you call it comes into effect, supposedly there are certain people that are doing all the paperwork to be ready. They all want that first store open, and I mean, and then my other question is, we're doing our due diligence to set this ordinance, but then is there a time limit or a timeline if then, and strictly for using them for an example, Hutchison or Glencoe decide they want to do their own, is there a timeline that they have to get theirs done? Do we have to come together on that, or is that something that's open?
I mean, theirs is open. You know, they can move forward with, you know, at the time they choose or don't. So I mean, you know, we can ask for a date to be notified if they plan on, you know, delegating certain tasks to the county or not for preparation purposes. But I mean, legally speaking, they're not on there's no drop dead or, you know, specific timeline that they would need to follow.
Because, I mean, there's a lot of steps here. If we have to go through all these, and in return, if they go on their own, they have to follow the same procedures. So, I mean, that could drag on for, you know, quite a few months, actually.
Yes, and I
Or a
mean, you
year
know,
even.
and cities have a slightly different process. I mean, they have their multiple readings of ordinances
Sure.
that they have to, I mean, it's a similar but slightly different process. But yeah, I expect the landscape to be changing here for, frankly, years to come,
Yeah.
not just months, statewide.
Thank you.
Okay.
From here, just a question. So, from here up until the 19th, thank you. Where would someone find this revised document?
This will be in the packet on our website. We actually could put it on the website on the front page as well, just a link to it with no problem.
They could probably should. Just because it wasn't in there for today because of moving around, but it probably should be, I believe, just to make more of an effort to get it out there for review, I guess.
I'll
Sure.
put it
And
in both places. Yeah.
We do have the previous copies in there that the cities and the townships have been referencing. Surprisingly, we've had 0 public requests for information on this. But if someone does need something, please reach out to us.
Okay.
So by the 19th, what the county board would want to do is make sure that they review that packet in front of them and let us know if any changes are being asked for so that we could draft it. And also then at that next meeting, we'll go over it and there would be a vote.
All right, any further questions at all on the cannabis ordinance? Anything else? All right, thank you.
Item B, notification of board workshop following the board meeting on Tuesday, November 19, 2024 at the McLeod County Government Center here at 520 Chandler Avenue North, Glencoe, Minnesota.
Okay, we've reached the end of our normal agenda. Before we go into our closed meeting, we'll open it up for any open forum or press relations that need to come before the board today.
Mr. Chair, can I make one note about our closed meetings coming
Yes.
up? Typically, we could move out of the room to go to a side room. However, that's being used for the election today. So we would stay in here and we will likely need to reopen after. But we will have to have the audience or anyone not involved in those closed meetings leave the room and ask them to come back after.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, one last call for open forum or press relations.
Move to go closed session.
Second.
Is there a second? Okay. Yes, we did need to entertain a motion and a second to close the meeting with the following, over the following topics, discussing a real estate purchase at Petenburg Park, county real estate sale proposal, and insurance opener request. So we do have a motion from Nagel, and who was the second?
I did.
Okay, sorry. Excuse me. Yep. To go into that closed meeting, any discussion on that?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I would just note that the closure of the meeting related to the two real estate items is referencing statute 13D.05, subdivision 3, paren C, paragraphs 1 and 3. So those would be the specific statutory basis. And then on the on the insurance opener request, that's related to our labor negotiations and strategy there. So that would be pursuant to Minnesota statute 13D.03, subdivision 1, paren B. And as already noted, that discussion would take place immediately after the discussion following the real estate here in the boardroom. So, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? We'll then vote on going into a closed meeting. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. We'll wait a few minutes for the